All right, this is problem 10 in quarter 4, sheet A. It is solve using the quadratic formula. So the name, solve quadratic equation with quadratic formula. Find A, B, and C. Plug into the discriminant to describe the solutions. We'll have to give you all that information. This is completely new for you. Plug into the formula and solve. Okay, so I need you somewhere on the side of the problem, or maybe on the back if there's a blank sheet, to write this information down. A quadratic equation. A quadratic equation is one that is in this form. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Anytime you have the exponent of 2 on a variable, the x squared, it is called a quadratic equation. Okay, that means you're going to have 2 answers because the exponent is 2. You'll discover later on as you go up in math, if the exponent would be 3, you'd have 3 answers. And if the exponent's 4, you'll have 4 answers, and so on. We only stick with 2 here in Algebra 1. Now, look at A, B, and C. Those are going to be numbers. Okay, those are going to be numbers, and that's what our description is referring to. So the number in front of x squared is always your A. The number in front of the plain x term is always B. And then the constant term, the number by itself, is C. Now, I'm going to tell you, the only one of those that has to be there is A. If you don't have an A, then you don't have a quadratic equation. Okay, sometimes you won't have a B, sometimes you won't have a C, but you always have to have an A. If there would be a problem where there was no X term, then you just say B is 0. Or if you'd have a problem where there's no C, like a plain number by itself, you just say C is 0. You're never going to have A is 0. The lowest A would ever be would be 1. Okay? Now, the first thing it says to do is find A, B, and C. So you will look at those spots. Actually, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that it's equal to 0, or it doesn't work. You got to make sure it equals 0. Okay, that's first thing. Then you look for A, B, and C. And then let's talk about the discriminant. So the question is, can A be a negative? Yes, A can be a negative. While we're on that topic, let me just say this. If A is positive, it makes a graph that looks like this. It's a parabola that would be called concave up. If A would be negative, the parabola would be concave down. I know I'm getting real far ahead of myself, but this is the kind of thing that you will be dealing with when you take your 10th grade graduation test. They talk about stuff like that. All right, let's talk about the discriminant. So the discriminant is used in the quadratic formula, but with this kind of problem, he wants you to do the discriminant first, and here's what it is. It is b squared minus 4ac. Okay, so that's why he said you need to find a, b, and c first. Well, in the quadratic formula, you use the a, b, and c also, but the discriminant's where we start. And you plug in the numbers for a, b, and c, and you get a value. Well, here's the rules about this discriminant. Okay, if it equals 0, after you plug it in, that means that you will have one answer. If it is a positive number, if it equals a positive, you will have 2 answers. And if it is a negative, you will have no answers, empty set. Now, we're talking in Algebra 1 terms. What did I say about an equation that has an exponent of a 2? Natalie? It has 2 answers. So when I say if it equals 0, there's 1 answer, hopefully somebody thought, wait a minute, she said there were 2 answers. Did anybody think that?
Yes.
Okay. It's the same answer twice, and I'll explain that to you as we do more with, it's the same answer twice. The same answer's there twice. So you only have to write it once. Okay, if it's negative and we say empty set or no solution, it's because the answers are not real numbers, they're imaginary. And we don't deal with that here either. Okay, you get that more in Algebra 2. Okay, so you're going to use that discriminant, and then, does everybody have that part written down?
Yeah.
Now I want you to write down the actual quadratic formula. Are you ready? So here it is, quadratic formula.
Is this going back?
Yes. X equals, because you know you're solving an equation for x. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Look familiar? That's the discriminant. Over 2a. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now, your assignment for tomorrow is to memorize that formula. And you're going to just continually say negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. You're going to have it memorized by tomorrow. Okay? You have to have that memorized by tomorrow. Negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Piece. I will try. Okay, questions? Yes. All right, here we go. We're going to solve the quadratic formula, using the quadratic formula, of problem 10a. 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. Okay. First thing it says for us to do, and you're always going to do over here on the right-hand side, is you're going to put A equals, B equals, C equals. So you always start out like this. A equals 2, B equals 4, C equals negative 1. If there is a negative, it is brought along with the number. Okay, the discriminant. Remember b squared minus 4ac, write that down. Plug in the numbers in the right spots. 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 1.
What does discriminant mean?
That's what goes under the square root sign. I think it'll become clearer the more we do. Right now you're thinking, I don't know what she's talking about, but trust me. So 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 times positive 2 times negative 1, positive 8. That gives me a 24. The discriminant rules I gave you on the back, if it's a positive answer, means you're going to have 2 solutions. Okay, now I want you to think about this since Matt brought that up about the discriminant. What does that mean? Okay, when I gave you the quadratic formula just a minute ago, the discriminant was the part that was under the radical sign. Okay? So I want you to think about this. If I have the square root of 24, remember when we did this in the last sheet, you would get plus or minus some number, right? Well, if it was the square root of 0, what would it be? So there wouldn't be, that's why there's only one answer when it's 0. What about if it was the square root of a negative 24? What? Huh? For us, it's not possible. That's why when we say check the discriminant to find out about your answers, and I wrote if it's positive, you get 2 answers. That's this one. If it's 0, you get 1 answer because it's the number in front of the plus or minus. And if it's a negative, it's no answers. Okay, so you need to tell how many solutions there are. If you come up to no solution, you can stop the problem and you're done. If you come up with 1 or 2, then you're going to proceed like this over here on the left. X equals, and you're going to write this down every time, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, I hope you realize you already did the hard part. Didn't we already figure out what b squared minus 4ac was over on the right? Okay, so when we go to fill this in, we can put that number in there.
Wow. What a shame.
So, negative b. Well, if b is 4, negative b would be negative 4. You put plus or minus the square root of, and we're allowed to put 24 in there, over 2 times 2. Okay, now it's all about simplifying. So we got to talk a little bit about what we learned the other day. So you're going to go negative 4 plus or minus. Now in 24, are there any perfect square factors?
Negative goes better. Yes. No, I don't
4 and 6. And then it's over 4. Hopefully you remember what I'm talking about with the 4 and 6. 4 is a perfect square. So it's negative 4 plus or minus. What will the square root of 4 come out as?
2.
So 2 square root of 6 over 4. Now, this only happens when all 3 of those spots have a common factor, what I'm about to do. So what I'm about to do is there's a negative 4 in one spot. There's a 2 radical 6 in another spot, and there's a 4 in another spot. They all have a common factor of 2. So I cancel a 2 there, a 2 there, and a 2 there. And I write my cleaned up answer would be negative 2 plus or minus square root of 6 over 2. That's my final answer.
I feel like that was a lot of work.
Okay, so you're new to this. Where did I get my 2 solutions? You don't have to write them separately, but I'm going to show you. Here it is. Here's my first one. Negative 2 plus radical 6 over 2. That's my first answer. My second one, negative 2 minus radical 6 over 2. That's my second one. We have plus or minus gets you 2 solutions. So maybe now when I said the square root of 0 there, remember how that's 0? So it would be the number in front of the plus or minus with 0. Well, it would just be the number in front. That's why there's only one solution. Okay,